from Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Onyeama.
Hello and welcome. DSS releases former CBN Deputy Governor Obadiah Mailafia after questioning him over comments on security in the north. Army investigates alleged involvement of soldiers in fish exportation and farming activities in the Lake Chad region. Federal Executive Council holds 11th virtual meeting, approves 8.49 billion naira for procurement of COVID-19 test kits. And UK economy plunges into recession for the first time in 11 years. Plus we'll have business and sports, and later on news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, crude oil output drops to 1.3 million barrels per day in the latest oil market report released by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries.
On sports news, French champions Paris Saint-Germain advanced to the UEFA Champions League semi-finals with a 2-1 win over Atalanta.
A former deputy governor of the central bank and former presidential candidate in the 2019 election, Mr. Obadiah Mailafia, who's been in the news over his comments on the security situation in the north, has been speaking on his invitation for questioning by the DSS. Mr. Mailafia was invited over comments he made where he alleged that a northern governor is the commander of the Boko Haram terrorist group. While the questioning was ongoing, a group of protesters stormed the DSS office in Jos, the Plateau State capital, to demand his release. Mr. Mailafia thereafter stepped out to make clarifications and said it was not time for denials.
That interview, which was meant for an FM radio station, someone just picked the clip, a small section of the 55 minutes broadcast, and put it on social media. And it went very, very, very far, all over the country, raising a lot of concerns. What I want to say is that, yes, all of those words were made by me. But if the whole 55 minutes interview was played out, the context of what I said in the small clip that went viral would have become clearer. This is not the time to disown what I said. Yes, I was privy to some very sensitive information which all statesmen are entitled to have by virtue of our public roles. I know that I should have taken more care to corroborate some of the information that I received. But perhaps some of it could corroborate, uncorroboratable, if I could use that phrase. I was in no position to follow them to their camps and to corroborate what was going on. But I am not a sensationalist. I'm an economist and a central banker. By nature, we are very sober people. We are not given to
Now, even though the claims have not been corroborated, the Northern Governors Forum are saying that his claims must be investigated. The chairman of the forum and governor of Plateau State, Simon Lalong, said in a statement that the forum was worried about the weighty allegations made by Mr. Melafia and it must be thoroughly investigated. According to him, the forum, which has been working with the federal government, security agencies, community, civil society, traditional and religious leaders, as well as development partners to defeat terrorism, banditry, and other forms of crime in the region, find the allegation very weighty. The statement reads in part, "We as Northern governors have met severally to discuss insecurity in the Northern region and the nation at large, where we did not only condemn the activities of terrorist groups such as Boko Haram, bandits, armed robbers, kidnappers and other criminals, but also engaged the president and all heads of security agencies in finding solutions to the problem." He also asked Mr. Melafia, and indeed all citizens with useful information on the activities of criminals and terrorist groups, to assist security agencies and government at all levels with such intelligence for proper action. The government further stated that he hopes that such allegations are not smear campaigns or attempts to discourage the Northern governors who are putting in their best to bring an end to insecurity in the region. And on the battlefront, the military says it's recorded some victories against Boko Haram insurgents terrorizing the Lake Chad area of Borno State. The defense headquarters said the air task force of Operation Lafia Dole destroyed the terrorist logistics storage facility, killing many of them in the heavy gun battle. The statement adds that the air task force acted on credible intelligence, which led them to the locations where the terrorists store their logistics and assemble to launch attacks. The statement adds that a series of follow-up aerial surveillance also showed that many of the terrorists were shot dead while trying to flee. The military's onslaught is coming in the wake of a series of meetings between the president and stakeholders in the security sector as they work out new strategies to end the killings. Last week, the president told the service chiefs to double efforts and re-strategize on how to rid the country of attacks by insurgents. Now let's stay in the northeast, and there's been an allegation of dereliction of duty among some soldiers and officers fighting insurgents in Borno State, and military authorities say they're investigating the matter. The soldiers have been accused of engaging in exportation of fish from Lake Chad waters and farming of arable land in Borno State. The allegations surfaced after an attack on the state governor Babagana Zulum in Baga, which the military is also investigating.
Baga used to be the home of the biggest fish market in northeast Nigeria. However, 12 years of insurgency has left its trail of destruction with thousands of villagers executed. There are reports of fishing activities going on in the Lake Chad, with Boko Haram reportedly in control of the waters since the civilian population is out of the way. But most recently, the military have also been indicted as being part of the fishing conglomerate, linking the allegation with the recent attack on Governor Babagana Zulum.
I'm never happy. You have accepted that? No, I haven't.
The deputy theatre commander of Operation Lafia Dole leads a panel of investigation on a 2-day fact-finding mission to Baga to verify the allegations.
What crops do you find?
Baga.
Are you aware of it?
No, sir.
The 130 Battalion, a forward operational base, is at the center of the allegations against the army since Governor Zulum's attack. But the commanding officer bears his mind.
Well, from Mungunu to Baga, there's no civilians. And there's no farmland for farming. There's no fishing activities carried on in this general area. None.
No.
Thank God, sir, it says allegation. There's nothing like that, sir.
I don't know where this rumor, this allegation, where it's emanating from. I just think that it's the work of our the distractors, and it's not good enough. But it's not for me to say that until our investigation we are still conducting the investigation, but We are still going as far as after Baga. We'll go towards Kano and other places to see whether they actually have these farmlands that they are talking about.
Investigations on the shootout involving the security escort of the Borno State governor has already been concluded by a separate panel. There are expectations that this development will later rest accusations and counter-accusations against the Nigerian army.
Meanwhile, military authorities are insisting they have to instill discipline among their officers, even as they continue to face insurgents head-on. One of such is the General Court-Martial held today in Abuja, where a soldier was sentenced to 45 years in prison for culpable homicide, theft and burglary. The soldier, Lance Corporal Babangida Ibrahim, is accused of killing and robbing one Mr. Bello Abdullahi Aliyu in Zamfara State on August the 11th, 2014. He pleaded guilty to the charges brought against him and was sentenced in line with the provisions of the Armed Forces Act. The president of the court, Major General Priye Fakoruga, advocates the need for members of the armed forces to adhere strictly to the rules and regulations guiding the conduct of military personnel in and out of uniform. Over in Benue State, Governor Samuel Ortom is making a case for citizens to own guns to defend themselves from mindless criminals who are bent on sinking the nation with the multiple attacks across the country on a daily basis. Governor Ortom says the nation cannot afford to assign security personnel to all Nigerians, as criminals now take advantage of that gap. And he believes the practical solution would be to empower Nigerians to defend themselves from criminals. He also notes that while Boko Haram and other insurgents have turned the northeast and northwest into a carnage field, herdsmen and kidnappers are having a field day in the north-central region of the country.
We've seen what is happening. We appreciate our security agencies. They have done so much in trying to curb the menace of these bandits, kidnappers, herdsmen, jihadists, and terrorists, and all that. But they've not been able to stop completely the killings that are going on. And most times, when these people come, they are armed and you're unarmed. And so you're bound to obey them. And they take you as if you're a nobody. And so it has been a running battle. Chief Akim Kumi, who was kidnapped, advocated for that. And I saw reasons with him. So I'm in agreement. But as a law-abiding governor, I would prefer that it shouldn't be an illegal arms acquisition by people. People should be allowed to own sophisticated arms like AK-47, just like those criminals have. And if government is able to license these people, they can own them in their houses. And when such people come, they should confront them.
And speaking of ownership of guns, the Minister of Defense, retired Major General Bashir Magashi, is also promising the government's support to Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria for the production of light tactical vehicles and other weapons. He believes this will help address the country's internal security challenges, especially in the fight against insurgents in the northeast, bandits in the northwest, and other parts of the country. He was speaking during a tour of the Daikon facility, which, according to him, will become the country's center of armament rather than relying heavily on foreign countries for military equipment and logistics. In part two, after the break, Foreign Affairs Minister Jeffrey Onyeama tests negative for COVID-19 as he shares his experience with us later. Plus, Nigerian ladies stranded in Lebanon return home. That's all coming up in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. DSS releases former CBN Deputy Governor Obadiah Melafia after questioning him over comments on security in the north. Army investigates alleged involvement of soldiers in fish exportation and farming activities in the Lake Chad region. Federal Executive Council holds 11th virtual meeting, approves 8.49 billion naira for procurement of COVID-19 test kits. And UK economy plunges into recession for the first time in 11 years. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Do subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android, Fire TV, and Roku as well. A 60-year-old man who was convicted of raping a minor has been sentenced to death by an upper Sharia court in Kano. The police arrested Mati Abdu in 2019 following the rape of a 12-year-old girl at Fasa village in the Sanyawa local government area of the state. Mr. Abdu was said to have confessed to the crime after the prosecution tendered all the evidence before the court. The sentence comes after a Sharia court in Kano sentenced a musician to death for committing blasphemy, although there has been public outrage over the death sentence. As part of measures to enable the Nigeria Center for Disease Control ramp up testing for COVID-19 in the country, the Federal Executive Council has approved 8.49 billion naira for the procurement of different requirements. This was announced by the Minister of Health after the 11th virtual Federal Executive Council meeting at the State House in Abuja, among other resolutions. He said the materials will help expand testing and diagnostic capabilities as the country battles community transmission of the disease. Our State House correspondent Kayla Megwa reports.
President Muhammadu Buhari presides over the 11th virtual Federal Executive Council meeting at the State House in Abuja. The security situation in the country has been a front-burner issue for weeks now, with the president holding a series of meetings with governors and security heads on ways to mitigate the problem. This time, the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development is asking for help to tackle the banditry in the northwest, which has crippled mining activities there.
The Council directed that the National Security Advisor should set up a special unit domicile in the FCT, Abuja, to coordinate, and coordinated by the Office of the NSA to carry out targeted operations at identified and confirmed illegal mining sites.
Also discussed at Council is the need to mainstream gender within the Climate Change Action Plan, seeing as women bear the brunt of climate change.
We take particular interest to make sure that women are involved in climate action activities, right from the inception, design, development, implementation, monitoring and evaluation of projects.
Then, the Minister of Health speaks on Council's moves to fund the Nigeria Center for Disease Control to improve testing as Nigeria navigates community spread of COVID-19.
The cost is 8.949 billion. That is to procure the items that are involved. Procuring testing materials, right from sample materials to other kits for diagnostics in our laboratory systems to be able to respond properly to the community transmission phase.
The Edo governorship campaigns have drawn criticism across the country, with attendees, which include government officials, accused of not adhering to the COVID-19 guidelines. This situation was also addressed at Council.
People take their beacons from us here, and you people. So you can see that it's not just about those people that went to campaign in Edo. As a matter of fact, in some parts of the country, think that anybody wearing a mask has COVID-19. But they don't believe it. So I think we all should take personal responsibility.
The plan is to have at least one sample collection center in all 774 local government areas in the country, which is vital at this point, as 586 local government areas are already impacted by the pandemic. Kayla Magwa, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the National Coordinator of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Dr. Sani Aliyu, is insisting that there's no scientific evidence to indicate that the use of disinfection tunnels are effective for the protection and prevention of COVID-19. Dr. Aliyu explains that already established non-pharmaceutical measures, including wearing of face masks, regular hand washing, the use of hand sanitizers, and physical distancing, remain the safest way to prevent the spread of the virus. He was speaking at a virtual colloquium organized by the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board.
Coronaviruses, they are respiratory viruses. What are you trying to achieve? If you use a mask, you're preventing the virus from escaping. Contamination of fomite surfaces, if you wash your hands and you don't touch your face, you will not have transmission. But you don't carry COVID all over you all the time. If I pour disinfectant, it doesn't matter what I pour. It's no different. In fact, it will be less effective than washing my hands. Because as I walk in, I'm not walking in and going like this and removing my... No. I'm walking in a normal way. So there are only surfaces that the disinfectant may touch. But there are a lot of surfaces that the disinfectant will not even touch. The tunnels, it's not like as you go in, they ask you to open your mouth, and then nose, and then eyes, remove your glasses, etc. It isn't. Certainly from our perspective, the PTF perspective, the evidence is just not there.
To some cheery news in the fight against COVID-19, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyeama, has recovered from COVID-19 a few weeks after testing positive for the virus. The minister, who announced this on his Twitter handle today, says he spent 3 weeks in isolation. The tweet reads, "By the very special grace of God, my latest COVID-19 test came back negative after 3 weeks in isolation. I'm eternally grateful to my family, the CNC and VP, the medical team, relations, friends, colleagues, religious leaders, and numerous well-wishers who, through their care, prayers, fasting, messages of support and encouragement, never let me walk alone." The minister, who has already resumed duties, was welcomed to a round of cheers by staff of his ministry. Well, that's really good news for him and his family, but I was able to catch up with Mr. Onyeama earlier on. I had a chat with him, and I asked him how he contracted the virus in spite of adhering to COVID-19 protocols.
I was very fortunate that I was almost asymptomatic, so I had very minimal symptoms, actually. So I was very, very fortunate.
Do you know how you contracted the virus? Because we were seeing you daily at the PTF briefings telling everybody to wash their hands and to follow the COVID-19 protocol. Did it come as a surprise to you that you contracted it, even though you're asymptomatic?
Yes, it came as a huge surprise. Well, first of all, I don't know how I contracted it. But it came as a surprise because I had what I thought was an impenetrable protection around me, I thought. I had the masks, I had the face shield, and I had this thing called this air doctor thing that's supposed to, provide or dispense some kind of antibacterial and viral spray around one, So there wasn't much else I thought I could do. I sort of washed my hands and sanitized, not as regularly maybe as I should, but I did.
So the theory that this could be airborne, do you believe that now that you've experienced this with all the, the precautions that you took and you still came down with it, do you believe that it's airborne as well now?
I don't know, just simply because I don't know how I caught it. Some people said that maybe the files that one treats in the office, could, I go through about 30 or 40 files a day that's coming in from all over the ministry. So you just cannot tell. You touch things, railings and so forth. So it's difficult to be categorical about the causes when there are just so many different ways of catching it.
One thing that we like to ask survivors is what cocktail of medication were you given? I know out there we say there isn't a cure, but there's this and that. So what did you take? Just to be honest and share that with us tonight.
Ivermectin, and I can't remember the name of the other one actually. And then, of course, the vitamin C and D, But it was just, I think, a cocktail about 4 things, really.
What sort of advice do you now have? I mean, you're on the other side of this virus now. You're now chalked down as a survivor. How best can we keep safe? And what sort of different advice do you have for the public out there who are watching you go through this and come out on the other end?
We shouldn't be worried about the issues of stigmatization and all that. Anybody can get it. It's not a crime if you get it. It's not anything to be ashamed of if you get it. It's almost like catching the flu or malaria, So people should not sort of sense that somehow, there's a stigma attached to it. And in my opinion, get tested immediately. Just if you're just not feeling right, just get tested, because it's not just for you, but it's for other people as well, all the others around you.
On a final note, have you suffered any stigmatization since you got back to work?
On the contrary, I've been embraced by everybody and felt very welcomed, and it was very, very moving. And very, very touching, the outpouring of support, sympathy, and relief. So that was very heartwarming.
All right. Thank you so much, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyeama. Thanks a lot for sharing that experience with us. Congratulations once again.
Thank you very much indeed.
And when the news at 10 returns, Nigeria's crude oil output drops to 1.3 million barrels per day in latest report by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. That's on Business News. Please join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. The northern part of Nigeria is not the only region that's concerned about the security situation in the country. Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State has joined the conversation as he asks for the refraining of the country's constitution for state policing. Governor Akeredolu's comment is coming a day after he inaugurated the state-owned security outfit, Amotekun. He spoke on our political program, Politics Today.
If you are talking about security of our people, we are talking about security of lives and properties, and all of us are thinking about what can be effective. There must be a change of our security architecture. To have a single command would not be in the interest of this country. It's not in the interest of the country. Policing, anywhere in the world, go to US, go to Britain, these things are decentralized in a way or manner. But you see, since we still have one just police, Nigeria police now, we must work towards it. That look, there must be different levels of policing. Now the police is talking about community policing. That's another level in which they are going to involve as many locals as possible in policing their locality. But do you want to still put them under a single command? To me, it's not going to work. Amotekun is legal. It has its own legal framework. There's a legal framework for it, and that's why it has taken us time before we took up. So, but when you talk about generally, all over the country. There must be a change.
94 of the 150 Nigerian girls stranded in Lebanon have arrived in the country. The returnees include about 30 girls seen in an online video recently, calling on the federal government and other relevant bodies and individuals to evacuate them from Lebanon. The National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, had given the assurance that the federal government was making plans to have the girls as well as others evacuated. The chairman of the Nigeria Diaspora Commission, Mrs. Abike Dabure-Erewa, who received the returnees at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, said more repatriation flights are expected from Dubai over the next few days and 200 Nigerian prisoners from Saudi Arabia. In a related development, 292 Nigerians were also evacuated from the United Arab Emirates, bringing the total number of evacuees from the UAE to 2,933. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says more evacuation flights are expected to arrive in Nigeria tomorrow. The ministry announced in a statement that a total of 413 Nigerians are to be evacuated from Ukraine and India on Thursday, August the 13th. 100 of the citizens will arrive in Abuja from Kiev aboard the Ukraine-class jet airlines around 8 a.m., while 313 others are expected to arrive in Lagos at 11 p.m. from New Delhi via an Air Peace flight. To politics, where the campaign trail of the People's Democratic Party in Edo State today made a stopover at Onwa East local government area as the party continues its quest for votes in the September the 19th governorship election. Addressing supporters in Ward 11 Warake, the PDP governorship candidate, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, restates commitment to more economic development for the people if allowed to continue as governor for another 4 years. Mr. Obaseki also commissioned a primary health care center in the area, which is refurbished under the Edo Health Improvement Program.
The Edo State Governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, acknowledges the People's Democratic Party PDP members on his arrival at this rally in Ward 11, Warake, as the PDP electioneering team enters Onwa East local government area. The campaign is all about getting the incumbent governor another tenure in office. It's a day of motivational speeches from the party leaders.
God has given us the courage, the ability, and the untiring determination to create PDP in Waraka Ward 11. We will fight until September 19th, and by the grace of God, we will deliver.
Mr. Obaseki, on his part, restates his commitment to people-oriented projects, particularly in health care.
I come this place, I see say that they deliver woman when one born, now torchlights, now they bring out. I nearly cry. I say for 2019, this is my last year, we still do this kind of thing for Africa? I said never. We start what we call Edo Health Improvement Program. So you see all of our PHC now, solar must be, so lights stay. Water must stay. We fence them, put security. We train the nurses, we train the workers when they're there, so that people don't go suffer again.
This promise is redeemed almost immediately. Opposite the rally ground is a refurbished primary health care center, which is now ready for use. The next stop is Ward 10, Iwiaro. The speakers in this event include a physically challenged artist, Samuel Agbodun, whose message is for Governor Obaseki.
Please, sir, what I would like you to do for us is to say strategic locations. Let our polling units be sited where the disabled can also practice their franchise. Why? Because we have been neglected. If not for my talent, I wouldn't have known him. He did well, and he is still doing well.
It's another campaign day, another local government area covered, as the PDP intensifies efforts to deliver votes for Governor Godwin Obaseki and his running mate, Philip Shaibu.
The Anambra State Traditional Rulers Council has condemned the conduct of 13 traditional rulers from the state who allegedly embarked on a trip to Abuja to meet with the president without authorization from the council and the state government. Addressing the media at the Governor's Lodge in Onitsha, the Obi of Onitsha describes the conduct of the erring traditional rulers as a slight on the collective sensibilities of the Traditional Rulers Council, the state government, Anambra State, and Ndibo in general. He spoke after leading other monarchs representing the 3 senatorial zones of the state to submit the council's recommendation to the governor, Willie Obiano, for appropriate sanctions.
How can some traditional rulers, any state, go to the presidency to discuss matters of the state without the knowledge and the clearance and the directive of the governor of that state? It's an insult to the governor of the state, because if all is not well in the state, the president will call the governor and say, what is happening in your state? So accountability is important. And for any of us, all of us here to wander off anywhere to go and start talking about matters of Anambra State and all of that without clearance of the governor, it's an insult to the government of Anambra State. And pass a resolution that they should be sanctioned. Make that recommendation to the government. It's up to the government then to decide what the sanction is.
Let's take a look at some business news now, and here's Anne Wilder.
Thank you, Ijoma. Welcome to Business News. President Muhammadu Buhari will tomorrow, August the 13th, commission the newly completed headquarters building of the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board located in Yenagoa, the Bayelsa state capital. A statement from the company says the president will perform the ceremony virtually after undertaking a virtual tour of the Nigerian content edifice. It is expected to provide uninterrupted electricity to the NCDMB structures, the Nigerian Oil and Gas Park, which is being developed by the road at MAL1 Bayelsa State, and select structures across the state. The 17-story edifice, which has a 4-level car park and 10 megawatts gas-fired power plant, was constructed in partnership with the Nigerian Ajib Oil Company. Founded in 2010 by the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Development Act, the NCDMB was launched to enable the implementation of the oil, gas and gas industry's content development. And talking about oil and gas, Nigeria's oil output has dropped to 1.3 million barrels per day for the last month, and that's according to the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. In the month of July, oil market report released says that OPEC indicates that the country has fully complied with the output of crude agreement made by OPEC Plus in the month of May in efforts aimed at improving oil prices at the international market. Meanwhile, that report also shows that Nigeria's rig count, which is a major indicator for measuring performance, dropped from 9 recorded in June to 6 in July, while oil exploration and production slowed down due to the negative impact of COVID-19. The Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission is calling for the development of the country's gas infrastructure in a bid to generate more revenue by as much as $1 billion annually from the sector to the Federation account. In a statement, Nigeria has not been able to utilize the abundance of gas deposits measuring more than 2 trillion cubic tons, and the continuous flaring of gas has not been in the best interest of the country. It adds that the current dwindling revenue from oil due to falling prices and the coronavirus pandemic gas economy will be the safe haven for the country, with the potential of employing more than 2 million people. And let's head to Nigeria's stock market. After 2 days of profit-taking, it has returned back to positive territory following significant gains from two high-value stocks on the NSE. Let's hear more from Layo Adegoke.
Thank you for joining us for the Stock Markets Report. In a surprise move, the stock markets rebounded sharply by more than 1% at the close of today's trading on the NSE, recovering all the losses from the sell-off in the last two sessions. And do you know which equities drove the market back to winning ways? Airtel Nigeria and Seplat. These two high-value equities recorded strong gains in their share prices, and that contributed mostly to the 135 billion naira increase in the market's overall value, while Seplat's performance made a strong impact on the oil and gas sector, as you can see on the board. Interestingly, Airtel, which is the NSE's third most capitalized stock, is making its comeback after being dormant in price movement for months. And so investors renewed their interest in the telecom giant. Meanwhile, traders say that what we see in today's trading session has renewed investors' interest for equities, and we might as well see more bargain hunting lift the market higher in the two remaining sessions this week. Let's just keep our fingers crossed. And that's it on the Stock Market Report. I'm Layo Adegoke.
Not Layo. It's also positive sentiment for major global stock markets at the close of midweek trading session. Investors are still shaking off concerns about COVID-19, and shares of major tech companies recovered some of the steep losses in the previous session. Let's take a look at the closing numbers for today. That's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Joma.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Anne. A former United States ambassador to Nigeria and Senegal, Mr. Walter Carrington, has died at the age of 90. Mr. Carrington died on Tuesday in the presence of his family. Appointed by former U.S. President Bill Clinton as an ambassador to Nigeria in 1993, Mr. Carrington arrived in Lagos a few months after the annulment of the June 12th presidential election and joined in the campaign for democracy in the country. Although his tenure ended in 1997, Mr. Carrington's interest in the affairs of Nigeria was no secret, having married a Nigerian and lived in 3 cities in the country. Meanwhile, the president has been mourning the former ambassador. In a statement, President Muhammadu Buhari described him as a long-time friend of Nigeria and an astute and courageous diplomat, saying the story of Nigeria's democracy is not complete without the mention of Mr. Carrington's heroic roles in the struggle. Here is the 2013 soundbite of the former ambassador on religious and ethnic violence in Nigeria.
There is just too much misunderstanding between Nigerians. There are too many people in the South who think that the North, that all Northerners are the same and that they have all these evil designs. And on the other hand, there are many Northerners who have their resentments against Southerners. And a lot of them are based upon stereotypes which are very wrong, and I hope that there will be more attempts to bring about an understanding between the different regions of this country, between the different ethnic groups.
Our thoughts and prayers are with his family. The UK has plummeted into recession as the economy shrinks an unprecedented 20.4% in the latest 3-month measure. UK Chancellor Rishi Sunak says there is no playbook for handling the unprecedented coronavirus pandemic and there will be hard times ahead. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The US Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden has picked Senator Kamala Harris as his choice for vice president. It makes her the first black woman to compete on a major party's presidential ticket in the United States.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be recognized.
The 55-year-old Senator Harris is a former prosecutor and state attorney general in California. Mr. Biden on Twitter called her a fearless fighter for the little guy and one of the country's finest public servants. At least 3 people have died in the southern Indian city of Bengaluru after protesters clashed with police over a provocative social media post about the Prophet Muhammad. The Facebook post, offensive to Muslims, sparked protests in India on Tuesday night, while a police station and a politician's house were attacked in Bengaluru. Bengaluru City Police said officers fired live ammunition to disperse the crowd, causing the death of 3 people. They also added 110 people had been arrested for alleged vandalism and attacking the police. Protests have continued for a 3rd night in a row in the Belarusian capital Minsk, following the incumbent leader Alexander Lukashenko's claim of victory in Sunday's presidential election. After Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the main challenger to the long-time president, said she had fled the country, security forces fired rubber bullets and stun grenades to disperse thousands of protesters in the capital. The protesters accused Mr. Lukashenko of fixing the outcome of Sunday's election. 6,000 people were arrested, that's according to the Interior Ministry. Witnesses reported seeing security forces detaining dozens of people and beating protesters in the streets as the European Union threatened to reimpose sanctions over suspected vote rigging and the violent crackdown. The Hong Kong pro-democracy figure and media tycoon Jimmy Lai has received a hero's welcome as he was released on bail and returned to his newspaper after being arrested on allegations of foreign collusion. Mr. Lai, his sons, senior executives from his next digital media company, and other pro-democracy activists were detained under Beijing's national security law on Monday, while Chinese state media labelled him a genuine traitor. Hundreds of police officers also raided the offices and newsroom of Apple Daily, the popular tabloid Lai founded, in a move decried as an assault on press freedom. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has delayed the dissolution of Parliament after the discovery of locally transmitted coronavirus cases, forcing the country back into lockdown.
As of 12 noon tomorrow.
The dissolution of the Parliament is a key step towards the upcoming general election in the country, which is now likely to be delayed as well. The poll is still scheduled for September the 16th. The outbreak in Auckland prompted authorities to reimpose tight restrictions on movement in New Zealand's biggest city and limit travel across the entire country. Mauritian authorities are rushing to finish pumping out the remaining oil from the ship that has caused a huge oil spill off the coast of Mauritius before it breaks up. Volunteers have intensified their efforts to clean up the toxic oil spill, which has been polluting the waters around Mauritius since last week. Locals have started to fish dead eels from the oily waters, while crabs and seabirds are also reportedly dying around the island. The local police chief told the media that cracks in the ship keep increasing and it may collapse at any moment. Namibia's president has said the offer for reparations made by Germany for mass killings in its then colony was not acceptable. German troops killed tens of thousands of Herero and Nama people between 1904 and 1908 in response to an anti-colonial uprising. It is thought that 75% of the Herero population and half of the Nama population died. No details of the offer rejected by the Namibian government were given in the president's statement. In Brazil, President Jair Bolsonaro has declared fires in the Amazon rainforest have gone down. That's despite data showing that thousands of fires are currently ongoing across the region. Data produced by President Bolsonaro's own government show that more than 10,000 fires have been recorded in the first 10 days of August, up 17% from the same period a year ago. Experts say that fires are not a natural phenomenon in the rainforest, but are usually man-made in order to clear forest land for pasture. And finally, Tokyo entertainment company First Airlines has responded to the stop to international travel due to coronavirus restrictions in a singular way with virtual reality. Since COVID-19 has stopped most travel from Japan, the virtual reality travel market is increasingly growing among Japanese holidaymakers. Grounded travellers sit in first-class seats in a mock jetliner cabin where they are served in-flight meals and drinks, while virtual reality goggles provide further immersive tours at destinations including Italy's cities of culture, Paris, New York and Hawaii. And that's your international news around the world in 5. And now back to the channel studios in Lagos.
Coming up in sports news, Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting's 92nd minute strike secured a remarkable comeback as French giants PSG Paris Saint-Germain came from behind to beat Italian side Atalanta 2-1 and reached the Champions League semi-finals. The game was played in Lisbon. Now the league-earned champions will face either RB Leipzig or Atletico Madrid for a place in the final in 11 days' time. The 2020 Masters will be held without spectators in November because of the COVID-19 outbreak. Chairman of Augusta National Golf Club, Fred Ridley, says the potential risks of welcoming patrons and guests to the grounds are simply too significant to overcome. NBA players could have their family members or close friends inside the season restart bubble in Orlando by the end of the month. The opportunity to bring guests into the bubble at Disney World will be for teams advancing to the second round of the playoffs. The earliest any guest could satisfy quarantine rules and be reunited with a player is on August the 31st. And French midfielder Blaise Matuidi has left Juventus Football Club amid reports linking the 33-year-old to a move to Major League Soccer side Inter Miami FC. Matuidi and Juve have mutually agreed to terminate the final year of his contract in Turin. The French World Cup winner made 45 appearances for the Old Lady across all competitions last season. And that's sports news.
Tunde, and the main news again. The Department of State Services today released former CBN Deputy Governor Obadiah Melafia after he was questioned over comments bordering on insecurity in the north. Also today, 94 of the 150 Nigerian girls stranded in Lebanon returned to the country. Among them were 30 girls who cried out to the federal government to rescue them in a recent social media video. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Stay safe and good night.